What's an AI expert? What's an agent? Is that automation that like looks at my email and saves my attachment an agent? Like autonomous system that works by itself? Do I have to include a ChatGPT prompt in the middle for that automation to be an agent? It's a mess.
I don't subscribe to YouTube channels. And one of 2 or 3 channels that I've subscribed to, and primarily is because of integrity. I've been following for a long time, and it's really good to do this interview. You don't know how much influence was there before the conversation, but there's obviously, it's safe to say that I'm an Igor fan. So thank you for making the time to be on the show. So welcome to the show.
Hey, it's Ronsley. Welcome, you AI geek, to Amplify AI. Consider this podcast your digital compass for you, the business leader wanting to use artificial intelligence ethically and in alignment with your brand's identity to achieve your business goals. Leading and running a business in the world of AI is like solving a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. But this podcast and I are here to make that easy. Every episode is a masterclass in unlocking techniques for using AI as a business leader, founder, owner. Thanks for being here. Let's learn.
Let me start at, did you always think yourself as an entrepreneur, or did you have a job, or what was your early career like? When you look back at your career, what are highlights that people don't know about that are not in their bio?
Oh my God, wait a minute. You're good at asking questions. So what, is it going to be fun? No, not at all, actually. It took me about 22 years to figure out that is kind of the buckets that my personality or like my being or my upbringing brought me to. There's a story that I don't tell often, but when I think I must have been 9 or 10, one of my first entrepreneurial ventures was going into the woods, collecting chestnuts that were like laying around. I packaged them into this fabric that you put under carpets. And then I set up like a chair and a little table at the main street, and I sold them for like 2 or 3 euros a pack. And then cars stopped by and like they sold up pretty fast. And that also like beautifully transitions into like the whole AI topic. Like literally just the day I came out, I was surrounded by people who were like-minded and who were in this mindset of trying new things just because it's interesting. And I tried ChatGPT on the day of release, and I was just like, this is incredible. And then I just did what I did. I created content around it, shared what I learned, and people seem to enjoy that. So I've been doing that ever since. Being so early allows you to gather a little bit more attention, a little bit more resources. And that's the story of how to go from selling chestnuts to teaching people how to implement technologies into their companies that they haven't had the time to figure out themselves how to do.
That's so cool. When you look back right now, and you said you started looking at ChatGPT and when it came out and you saw certain things, what reps did you do before that allowed you to get all that so easily and put that into place? Because a lot of people checked out ChatGPT. They didn't build a team around it or a successful YouTube channel or a community around it and delivering a lot of value on a regular basis.
I think it was multiple things coming together. I was just dedicated to YouTube. I had a video production company that I was working with corporations to produce their trainings. So I was already in educational videos at scale. And I just realized I need to make a change. And I looked at the landscape and what I could do. And obviously it's a big step from just producing videos because all of a sudden you're the talent too. I just made the decision that like, I just need to do it. I'm not exactly sure how, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to start uploading at least once a week, twice a week, most of the time. And at the point of at the ChatGPT moment, I was already uploading for 1.5 years, twice a week on average. I was doing weekly live streams for the past 5 months. I didn't leave out a single week. So I was just leading into that with this content creation train and mindset. So when ChatGPT came around and it sparked my interest, it just naturally connected and I had to create around it. I think a lot of people tried ChatGPT free before that and just didn't see the magic in it. Matter of fact, when I uploaded the first video, I think it was 4th of December, 2022 on ChatGPT, 5 days after release. The hype came around in like January or February, most of it. It was like the videos got thousands of views all of a sudden, but it wasn't the hype that we know now. It wasn't like the growth took some time, but it still took a month. It didn't take days. Not a lot of people picked up on it. So why did I pick up on it? I think it's because I had a multitude of skills that this really steamrolled in many ways. I was aware of multiple industries and multiple skill sets, and this really disrupted them. That's what I'm trying to say. I always say I know enough to be dangerous. I can put things together, even without AI, with some documentation. In the video production industry, I essentially worked with every business. I kind of like, that's just me. It's not the best business decision, but I did everything all the way from like nightclub videos to medium-sized commercials, product photography, event photography, weddings, small commercials, social media ads. I kind of like dipped my fingers into every jar that there is. So I was just very aware of like how digital marketing works, how media moves on the internet. I was just aware of all these skill sets because I had them at least at like an intermediate level in most cases. And all of a sudden I was using a tool where you type in a sentence and it just does it for you to a level where with my intermediate skill, like all of a sudden I had like a little assistant that could like draft things up for me, and I edited it a little bit and like, boom, it's done. Like creating a script for a video shoot, creating storyboard drafts or idea drafts, that's tedious. You got to research the client. You got to understand their values. You got to come up with a story structure. You got to present it to them. Here, even with 3.5 at release, I could just prompt 3 versions, send it to the client, and they were like, wow, how did you get that to us in like 2 hours? So it was just revolutionary. And together with the video production piece, there was just no other way. I just had to share what I found. I think the answer is like the dedication to YouTube and to content production and to really doing that no matter what. And then the multitude of skills that I just taught myself over the years. I think that really made me realize the potential of it.
I love it. I feel there's a huge part left out in the sense that I feel that you picked this up because you're multilingual and you've had to learn language differently, and you've had to learn to express yourself in English from a different language. That's why when it comes to you prompting and with your skills in Logic and Python, makes you very, very valuable in the prompting world.
Actually, I completely agree. I think you're right. I had this discussion with a prompt engineer friend of mine, and we had this discussion around how Czech/Slovak, they're very similar languages. And we're talking about how actually Czech/Slovak is a superior language when it comes to sentence structure and directness. In English, you often have these phrases that they soften the blow, but Czech and Slovak, it's just like straight to the point and then maybe add an insult in the end. That's how you speak the language. And it's super common. Like insults are way more common than in the English language because they even like amplify the point. They add a punch. If you look at the sentence structure of English versus the sentence structure of Czech or Slovak, you'll find the sentences are shorter, they're more straight to the point, and there's less ambiguity. And I think if you have that mindset, it helps in prompting. Because there's no ambiguity. It's just straight to the point. You communicate what you need. You communicate what you want. Slavic languages, they're just a bit more upfront.
I think it helps massively. I feel that's the key to all this is being able to express ourselves. And it's similar in entrepreneurship, I feel, because the biggest jump is going from a solopreneur to an entrepreneur where you have team, because there are other parts in our business that come into play, like recruitment and culture and operations and process, and it's a whole bunch that is a lot of us are not even trained for when we get into it. For someone that has been teaching for a while and obviously seeing what resonates with people, because you get a very skewed version of the world, what do you see is currently the state? And also, what are the things you wish they understood before they start buying prompt packs or like paying someone thousands of dollars to create a custom GPT or those kind of things?
So I would actually say prompt packs are great. And I don't only say that because I still sell some. I say that because it opens your eyes to the possibilities. It's like a menu in the restaurant. What they do is they give you the menu when you come to the restaurant. And it's good to have a menu when you're at a restaurant rather than having to guess what this Italian restaurant could maybe cook. And the thing with ChatGPT is it's not even an Italian restaurant. It's just a restaurant that serves up like various code snippets, or you don't even know what it serves up. All you know is that there's a little chat box. Now you get like 4 recommendations from them that are like random and mostly useless. But it's really nice. I think with prompt packs, it shows you what can be done. It shows you can take this angle. You can transform this into that. You can take code from one language, turn it into another language. You can not just generate marketing plans, but also ideate before that. And then you can hook them up together. The GPT building part, I think that's a skill worth yourself, because the value, it's going to be ever changing. And if you don't know how to customize it, the value in there is not that immense. So there's not the inspirational value, the eye-opening value that maybe the prompt packs have is not present with the GPT building, because it's going to use different software and you're going to need to adjust it and you're not going to know how. But to answer your question, what are the things to look at and what are the things that people are missing? Well, I think first of all, there's like just a massive divide. So it's really important to get a feel for who you're talking to. It is hard to readjust your mindset sometimes, but I think it's always important to like gauge the level of the person you're communicating with. And I reckon like your audience will be relatively well informed, and like forward-looking marketers and entrepreneurs. They're usually the types that seek this stuff out. Let's say intermediate to advanced level, be aware of. I think I'm still the biggest proponent of your personal needs and being able to communicate them to the LLM. In other words, doing what Apple will do with your phones automatically in a few months here, but having full control of that. So the reason their features are going to be, I think, quite powerful, and I think they're going to find product market fit. This might be a bit of a prediction, but I think it's going to be a no-brainer to kind of like auto-write emails and SMSs if it's just a click away and if it's aware of your previous conversations and how you write and everything. And the reason they're able to do that, even on device with their tiny, not very capable model, it's because they have a lot of your personal context. And you can craft that too. And many people, they go straight into the deep end and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to automate everything. I'm going to build agents and I'm going to become an AI expert. I'm not even sure what half those words mean. But I don't mean like that I couldn't define them. I mean that like if 100 people define them, you would be getting 100 definitions. It's almost as bad as with AGI. Like people just, it's all over the place. Like, what's an AI expert? What's an agent? Please like tell me that. Is that automation that like looks at my email and saves my attachment an agent? Like autonomous system that works by itself? I don't know. Like, do I have to include a ChatGPT prompt in the middle for that automation to be an agent? A lot of people would agree, but it's a mess. So my point being, to bring it all together, what Apple is going to do for you automatically, you should be able to do for yourself, because that's going to translate. If it's ChatGPT, Gemini, if it's Claude, if it's whatever the heck comes up, it doesn't matter what it is. You should be able to communicate who you are, what your goals are, and you should probably have multiple sets, because we're a mixture of personalities, really. If you look at it like from a psychological point of view, whatever it might be, there's multiple contexts where people just behave differently. And if you want to use AI in that other context, you should probably be able to communicate it. That means defining your goal, your tone of voice. I put these custom instructions out for free into the wild. It's basically, we created like a 24 building block thing with various pre-definitions. It's just my best shot at doing it, but it could really be just you going in and be like, hey, my name is Igor. This is kind of my backstory. These are my business goals. This is how many employees I have. This is how my company operates. These are the values I direct myself by. These are the checks and balances I like putting in place. This is my communication style in terms of tone of voice. And maybe here's 2 example emails that I wrote. If you put that together, you are equipped for the future, because whatever comes, GPTs, agents, like you're going to be able to send that first message, which is like, hey, this is me. Let's start working. And I think a lot of people are not aware of that. They look at the fancy stuff and all the buzzwords, and they're not even able to do what Apple is going to do for most of the population automatically.
That's a huge point, because context is everything. I mean, context has been everything in marketing for the longest time, and people got that wrong by thinking it was content, which it isn't. Even now in AI, it's the same narrative is playing out. Content isn't the thing, which everyone's getting. Every time there's a new model, everyone's going nuts about it, and for good reason. Sonnet 3.5 is just blown all performance benchmarks out of the water. And when you think that I can program in 21 languages, but looking at artifacts and how it generates code so insanely well, you're like, wait a minute, that skill of mine is useless. I feel what's going to happen in my limited view of the world, I've always found it weird that a human being has to go to be trained for at least 12 years before it can operate in the world. And we kind of train the human in this IQ way. And I feel like we're going to move into the EQ way, because I think IQ is already commoditized already, just like information in industry before that. I feel like kids and we should go to school to learn collaboration and courage and connection and being kind.
I think there's a real point there. And I also think that if you look at the current school system, it's heavily weighted towards increasing like at least perceived IQ. I know you can't really like increase IQ per se as it's measured, but it's optimized to increase world knowledge. It's optimized to do all the things that ChatGPT and the internet do really well. So that's tricky. Like going to law school and learning different laws by heart, it doesn't seem like the skill of the future, if you look at these technologies, as opposed to like, how do you deal with a diverse set of humans that don't come from one culture, but 10 cultures, not from one continent, but 5 continents? Like, how do you deal with that? Nobody tells you that. You just got to figure it out. Yeah, I would teach my kids people skills first and foremost.
Let's talk about that custom instructions, which I just thought that's what I understood from that first piece of value, which is absolutely phenomenal. Your personalized version of this is who I am. Let's start conversing, which is so valuable. Great foundation. What's the next step? Because I think people start talking about tools because I think that's the only bicycle they know to ride. Tools will come and go, but what you just mentioned is foundational.
I might be biased. This is like my focus topics for the past year. But I think building these like little assistants for yourself and setting them up. So like they're the custom instruction. This would be kind of a follow-up. And the custom instructions basically, or giving it the personal context, is like step 1. But step 2 is then, okay, taking those and inserting them into maybe bodying them, although you're not giving them a body, giving it a spirit, giving it a certain drive, a certain goal, a certain communication sequence on how to interact with somebody. I think that's really the next logical step. So if I, like in my context, I create 2 YouTube videos a week, no matter what. And the 2 YouTube videos, there's always a brainstorming process that goes into them. And I've accumulated various brainstorming techniques with that outside of ChatGPT and in ChatGPT. And it just built this like little personalized GPT that includes all the brainstorming techniques. I mapped them to various keyboard shortcuts. I included my custom instructions, my goals with the company and all of that. It just saves me time every time I brainstorm. And this is just like one use case, and you don't have to do it with GPTs. You can just do it with Claude. You can just do it by hand if you have it. No, I guess this is like designing instructions for an assistant. You could build the chatbots. You could put in some agentic framework. You could build an interface like we talked about last time, where you actually don't see any of the AI stuff up front. It just asks you like, hey, what's the name of your company? What's your age? And what's your goal? And then it just provides you the value in the back because you set up the elaborate prompting that produces it. But I think that's the next kind of foundational thing that I don't see getting old anytime soon. No matter what happens to like LLMs in the entire space, I think, because it's really the skill of like managing people and managing an assistant. It's like, what context would I need to give a very skilled, very intelligent assistant that I hire to perform the task that I want performed well, or maybe not just well, maybe excellently? What do I need to tell them? What kind of tools do I need to give them access to? Just being able to ask these correct questions. And you learn how to ask these questions by actually building some of these things and by actually getting your feet wet a little. And I think that's kind of the next foundational piece, because I think no matter what happens with the technology, this idea of technology powered, I won't even say AI, but just like by a technology powered assistant is going to only become more relevant in our lives. I don't see a future where we're going to have access to technologies like these robots powered by LLMs that can cook for you and clean for you, and where that comes down to a price level where most people can easily afford it, and where that's not a part of our everyday lives. I don't see that happening. And I think there's going to be a lot of customization that one will be able to do by understanding how to direct an assistant. So yeah, but all that ultimately, like, what's the ultimate timeless skills? It's just developing confidence in your taste. And that comes from awareness, which goes back to like all the spiritual teachings of every religion ever, to bring it full circle. But I think the micro step, and the thing like within the context of AI that everybody could do or should do, is like, first of all, the custom instructions, figuring out how to communicate what you need. And secondly, figure out how to not just communicate your goals, but also like your needs and how they can be met to others, so that you can do that with an AI system. Because if this tech becomes available, it's going to have an edge over everybody else.
The whole idea of being able to augment human intelligence with artificial intelligence. And that's what the book is. My new book is really how to augment human intelligence with artificial intelligence and align it with divine intelligence. Because ultimately it is about solving meaningful problems. If you have this kind of power, I feel this power should be regulated, but here we are in 2024 with no regulation. I definitely very much stand for the fact that it should be freely available to everyone and anyone that can wield a computer. Let's talk about the future. What do you see coming? Like, what are some of the interesting things? Because you must keep way on top of the news. What are some crazy use cases you've recently seen?
I think just this general concept of either content products or software or applications on demand that are like hyper personalized to you. I think there's just going to be more and more of that. I like to reference the Apple Move, although it's not available yet, but I think they're going to ship like AI features to 1 billion users, and it's going to be at their fingertips. They're going to be using it. And what are they really doing? They're just bringing the things that were available like maybe 2 years ago already with GPT-3 into interface that is easily accessible. And they're bringing hyper personalization to your fingertips without you having to know anything about it. Doesn't matter. And I think if that's the very first step in like consumer adoption, and then the last step is like a Netflix where you kind of upload your phone and Apple Watch data or whatever watch you wear, upload your vitals, and depending on your current mood and psychographic and like depending on all the variables that data it has on you, it just creates like a new season of your favorite show from scratch for you with the stories that will resonate with you well that evening. That's the other end of the spectrum, and everything in between. All of that entire spectrum has one thing in common. It's hyper personalization. Using this like artificial intelligence in order to personalize content for you. And I think it will come in many ways, shapes, or forms. Somewhere in between there are these personal assistants that actually get things done for you, get a lot of digital chores done for you. So I think just thinking about how that could impact you, your personal life, your loved ones, but also your career, it's a very interesting question to ponder. But I think the future is going to be hyper personalized. And I think there's also a dark side to it, definitely, which is worth pointing out with like mass persuasion campaigns for politics and like scams and that entire side of it, deepfakes. I think we've seen a lot of it, but it's just kind of like the beginning. But then at the end of the day, I think that humans are great at adapting, have always been. I think all of this massive technological change, I'm very optimistic. I might be better equipped to adapt than somebody who hasn't been moving all their life and didn't have my experiences. Nevertheless, I think we're exceptional at adapting. And I think a lot of these things are going to make our lives easier. But to answer your question, it's hyper-personalization. I think that's the one big trend that we'll see amongst everything. It's not going to be generic products. It's not going to be generic software. You're going to click it. It's going to generate the software. You're going to have the application that you exactly need right there, generated from scratch, that's open source and on your machine, rather than having to pay a SaaS hundreds of dollars per seat.
Well, to be mindful of time, I want to land this plane and I want to say a bunch of things. Firstly, I'm a huge fan. Interviewing you right now, considering how much of content I consumed. So ladies and gentlemen, check out AI Advantage. Look it up on YouTube. Thank you for doing this interview.
Matt, thank you for the invite. And also thanks for being around and for some great conversations. Also, you brought a lot of inspiration into my life and I appreciate the invite.
Thanks, bro.
Hey, AI Geek. Thanks for listening. Your job doesn't stop here. I want you to lend your voice to the conversation. So you can join those conversations, discussions, new trainings, new recordings, and the rest of the AI Geeks by going to aigeeks.co. Also, share this podcast with a friend, another potential AI geek. Until then, much love.